During this meeting, first of all, I'd like to welcome everybody, including members of the public. I would like to say that could you put your mobile phones onto airplane mode or switch them off, please. And this meeting will be recorded, and that the recording will subsequently be available for public listening. I would like to ask Lucy to confirm the Sederunt and apologies.
Good morning, everyone. We have 17 members present. We are quorate, and I have apologies from Councillor Dempster, Councillor Blake and Councillor Gilroy. Councillor Driver has advised that he may be along a lot later in the meeting.
Thank you, Lucy. I would like to ask, is there any declarations of interest? Councillor Murray.
Just to advise that I have actually spoken with the applicants on the first item, the Longburn Wind Farm, although I made it very clear at the meeting with them that I was not making up my mind either way during that particular meeting.
Jeff?
Yeah, the same.
Same.
The same as well.
Same.
Ivor?
Likewise.
Ian?
I wouldn't have thought it'd been declarable interest, but I mean, because we speak to lots of people, but ultimately, I've spoken about it. I certainly haven't prejudiced my position in any way, Chairman.
Thank you.
Same, Chairman.
Thank you. Right, we'll move on to number 3 on the agenda, the minutes of the Planning Applications Committee meeting of the 22nd of June 2017, the final minutes for approval. We'll now move on to number 4 on the agenda, the Longburn Wind Farm, 7.2 kilometres east of Carsphairn, Castle Douglas. Sorry. Beg your pardon. I've just been told that the clerk will advise the procedures and how we go about this meeting.
The Planning Applications Committee will consider each application in turn as detailed on the agenda. The case officer or other appointed officer will make a short presentation addressing the determining issues accompanied by digital images. Any late information, amendments or corrections will be reported at this time. Members may ask questions of officers following the presentation on points of clarification. The Chairman has been provided with a list of eligible representatives who have been registered to speak at this meeting within the period specified in Council policy. No other persons will be allowed to speak. The Chairman will individually invite those who have registered in advance to speak to make their presentation, after which they may be questioned by committee members. No questions may be asked of members. The order of eligible parties being heard will be as follows: third parties objecting to an application, third parties supporting an application, statutory consultees objecting to an application, elected members of Dumfries and Galloway Council who are not members of the Planning Applications Committee. Such members should withdraw from the committee chamber after making their presentation. Applicants or their agents. Representatives have been placed in alphabetical order, and a copy of the public speaking list is available from the committee officer taking notes of our proceedings. Presentations will be strictly limited to 3 minutes per person, excepting for national and major developments, which by their very nature are more complex, where the time limit will be 5 minutes. The Chairman of the committee will ask you to come to a conclusion if you take too long. Representatives are encouraged to use the time allotted to clarify any points they consider material and address the determining issues. Certain matters are not normally material planning considerations and will not be taken into account by the Council when deciding on a planning application. Representatives should not raise any new matters without explaining why they were not raised earlier with the case officer. Please do not repeat what is in the report, as members will have already read the report. After all the representations have been heard, the meeting is then in formal session, and no members of the public may address the committee from the public gallery. The Planning Applications Committee will then proceed to determine the application, or, where appropriate, agree a recommendation to be made to full council, who will determine the application. The first item is item 4, which is a major development, and the time allotted for speakers will be 5 minutes.
Thank you, Lucy. I apologise for jumping ahead of you there. Right, we'll move on to item 4, which is the Longburn Wind Farm, 7.2 kilometres east of Carsphairn, Castle Douglas, planning application for the erection of a wind farm capacity of 23 megawatts, comprising of 10 wind turbines, maximum height of 134 metres to blade tip, site a substation, meteorological mast, maximum height of 80 metres, temporary construction compounds and formation of hardstanding, watercourse crossings, access to the B729 and associated infrastructure, planning application number 16/P/2/0187. And we have Chris Mattia to give us a presentation.
Thank you very much, Chair. Tracy, is the presentation on? Because I'm pressing the button and nothing's happening. There we go. Thanks very much. Thank you very much. The application is located adjacent to the B729 between Carsphairn to the west, about 7 kilometres, and Moneyhouse to the east, about 13 kilometres distant. The same application site was subject to a Section 36 application to the Scottish Government in 2013 for 20 135 metre wind turbines. At the time, the council was consulted, and the consultation responses that we had at the time identified issues surrounding landscape and visual impact and the potential impact on the Stone-Fregan archaeologically sensitive area, and the Section 36 application was subsequently withdrawn. The site layout, as we can see here, the 10 turbines are all marked with a T. The Met mast is just to the east of turbine 4, just off the shoulder of a hill called Shalloch. Within the application site, there's proposed to be 7.8 kilometres of permanent new access tracks, 5 water crossings which are marked with blue crosses on the plan, various compounds labelled A, B and C, and a substation compound as well. And you can see from the site layout that the Southern Upland Way long distance footpath runs through the site from the south and kind of exits to the northeast of the site boundary. No turbine-specific turbine type has been approved other than the height. So these are just generic turbine pictures. And then we've got the proposed substation compound as well. Within 10 kilometres of the application site, we've got various turbine developments now. Turbines that are approved are marked as triangles, and stars are ones that are pending. So the application site is in the middle of the circle there. You can see the approved Weather Hill operational wind farm to the east of the application site, and the Windy Standard cluster to the north and upwards towards the turbines in Upper Nithsdale. The Black Craig Wind Farm is located to the south-east as well. One thing I do have to advise members on is prior to the application coming to committee, there was an application in with the Scottish Government for a wind farm at South Cowell, which is located about 13 kilometres to the northwest of the application site, and it's been approved by the Scottish Government within the last sort of week, 10 days, and that's for 50 150 metre turbines. Here we've got the turbine developments within relation to the landscape character types. You'll see just in a wee second I've filled in the most relevant ones, but the landscape character types, as you can see, there's quite a lot of them. In this area, they're all outlined in red. So you can see here the application site is located at a transition point between 5 different landscape character types. Although we have boundaries for them, one area doesn't start and another one stops. They kind of sort of flow into one another. So the landscape issues were one of the key issues surrounding the determination of this. The application site, as you can see, it's located within LCT 19A, which is southern uplands with forest. If you can sort of look underneath the shading of that, it's mostly forest, but the application site is located in an area of open space next to the narrow wooded river valley there, which is the Water of Ken, runs down the west of the site. So this point is effectively the transition from the southern uplands down into the Upper Dale landscape type. So the site essentially doesn't quite read as it should on the map. It's visually and contextually, it kind of merges into the sort of the open space as you follow the road down. That's partly the reason the council's landscape architect objected to the proposal on a couple of different grounds, which I'll go over just shortly. These are the regional scenic areas that we have over in that part of the world, so you can see the application site sitting in between the two of them there. Some of my own photos before I move on to the actual visualisations. This is taken from the main road, the B729 that runs between Monalive and Carsphairn. In the distance, way over in the distance, is Cairnsmore of Carsphairn in the background. This is a view from within the application site looking up towards the Water of Ken. This is the narrow river valley, and the landscape in the woods kind of close in on the road and the river further up the valley. This is from within the application site. The main road runs left to right or right to left, if you will, through the sort of centre ground of the photograph here. And this is looking towards Culmark and Culmark Hill. This again is from a high point at the front of the application site, looking towards Smoothen's Bridge. This has the another grand name of the high door of the Craig. It kind of emphasises the sort of the open aspect of where the application site is located, and that's a sort of point in between the two, looking into the distance. Zone of theoretical visibility to turbine tip height within 35 kilometres of the application site. The main views are located within about 15 kilometres, and there are intermittent views from 25 kilometres out, especially up the A713 running up through the Glen Kens from Dalry to Carsphairn. And sorry. Tip height, and then the same for hub height there as well. Taking a closer look at the application site, one of the other key issues that we had was cultural heritage assets within the application site. What you can see in the sort of the burnt orange colour, covering about 2/3 of the site, is the Stronfreggan archaeologically sensitive area, which is a designation that the council has put on that particular site. There's a lot of examples of archaeology within the localised area, but a lot of it is covered up by commercial forestry plantations, so the sort of the open ground of where the application site is has quite a lot of archaeologically interesting features on it, which led to the council's archaeologist objecting to this proposal as well. Looking at some of the viewpoints, we'll start within, or just adjacent to the application site, and move further out as we go. So this is the view from Stronefreggan Bridge, and these are the applicant's proposed visualisations that we're looking at, and that's from the sort of the high point at the Craig Fort. The picture that you saw earlier that I took was looking south, and this is the view north from there into the application site. Gutterig Line, which is on the B729, just further down the road from where I took the first picture, but this gives you a view of the application site, and you can see the rear forest edge behind the front two turbines there. Smitton's Bridge, again located next to the application site, and the Water of Cairn Valley runs up from the left of the picture there. Stronefreggan Cairn, it's just south of the application site. And that's looking across to a couple of the houses that are located close by the application site. Carrick Hill, further east, looking down into the application site. So we're starting to draw further away from the application site. Colmark Hill to the south. Oh, and I've jumped ahead. Ben Brack, which is a hill on the southern upland way. So this is looking down from the southern uplands down towards the application site, and it emphasises the lower elevation of the application site and the sort of the more open aspect beyond it. Viewpoint from Minor Road nearby, the B7000. Dunduke Hill, a bit further out as well. So we're gradually pulling away from the application site here. Beniner, I think it's pronounced. It's a summit on the way to the top of Cairnsmore of Carsphairn. Apologies if that's not pronounced correctly. And you're looking down into the application site from on high. And this is a bit further west as well. Oh, there we go. Alhang, well, I hope not, from further north. And we're gradually getting further away from the application site. Not such a nice day for that picture. That's us. That's the last visualisation for this one. Just to conclude, as an application for planning permission, it falls on the council to determine this revised proposal on its own merits. In many regards, the proposal can be seen to represent an improvement on the previous Section 36 application. Nonetheless, the present proposal is still considered to be a significant departure from the Council's adopted development plan, and for the reasons stated in the report, it is recommended that this application is refused. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. I will now ask the members for questions. Councillor McComb.
Thanks, Chair. Chris, could you go back on the slides to the one of the viewpoint from Craig of Knockgray? Could you identify the wind farm which is in the background, please?
That's Weather Hill. That's the currently operational Weather Hill wind farm.
Thank you.
Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks. Chris, can you tell me, you put a visual up there about how many were in the pipeline, so to speak, for cumulative impact. Can somebody explain to me what relevance that really has? Because if we take this on its own merits today, what hasn't been determined shouldn't. They would be taken in their own merits when time comes for them to come in front of this planning authority or the Scottish Government. So why is it a factor in this whole thing? Because looking at your green ones, there's only a handful that are actually operational.
Part of the I suppose the wider policy is that we look at turbine development cumulatively. Because they're not determined doesn't mean that they might not be determined. So we have to have an eye to the future potentially for any developments that are coming through. So although do you want me to put the slide back up? It's way back at the beginning.
Because I've just come in, it's a technical question. Why are they there? If it was a house, would we have the same thing? And I'm trying to get my head around why we're told that every application is taken on its own merits. Yet we're taking into account things that might come. Technical question rather than a practical question.
Chair, if I could maybe explain in a bit more detail. Cumulative impact forms part of both our council's policy in terms of how we assess and determine planning applications for wind farms, and it's also referred to in Scottish Government guidance in Scottish planning policy. One of the key impacts, as Chris has outlined, when we're considering wind farm applications is their landscape impact. And it's fully expected that we take into account the impact not only of the development that's currently being proposed, but also developments that are either currently consented, currently operational, or are in the pipeline for future consideration, so that members are fully aware of everything that potentially could happen within the surrounding landscape. But cumulative impact is written into the council's policy in terms of how we assess these applications. So it is a material consideration that's within the local development plan.
Does that answer?
Kind of yes, and I think I'm getting to where I want to be here. So just say, for example, we were minded today to say no. Would this still be seen as a potential cumulative impact on the other applications coming forward?
Well, no, in that case, it would be a determined application, so it no longer is potential, obviously, notwithstanding any future appeal outcome.
Okay, so that seems a bit unfair to say the least, but yeah, I take your point and you've answered the technical question. Thank you.
Councillor Young.
Thank you, Chair. Chris, in your commentary to one of the photographs, you said houses close by. Now, from the notes, my understanding was the nearest house is just under 1 kilometre away, and there's 8 houses within 2 kilometres. So should there not be a house close by, or was there several houses in that photograph?
There were let me just fast forward through this. I think there were 2 just in view. So Frank Kern. Yeah, the behind the tree in the middle distance is the old schoolhouse, I think, and just to the left there's another house just in there as well. But there are, like you say, there are 8 within 2 kilometres of the application site, not just along the roadside. There are others sort of close by up private farmlands and things.
Can you confirm that distance is about 1 kilometre between the house and the turbine? It looks a lot closer.
Just give me 2 seconds while I consult that. I do have a note of which ones are nearest to the application site. Yeah, Yeah, the house in the picture next to the building with the red tin roof would be the old schoolhouse. So that's 1.2 kilometres from the nearest turbine. The black mark is the closest residential property. That's just under a kilometre from that one. These visuals, I didn't take the photographs with these. These were submitted visuals with that. So I was just using them to demonstrate the views from close in the application site, gradually getting further away.
Councillor Hislop.
We had the landscape character areas that were delineated. Now, unfortunately, when you put a line in a map, you actually then sort of have a boundary, whether you like it or not. So it is in one character thing, although it's on the border of the two of them. Who actually advised on where this line should be? Was it our landscape architect, or was it someone else who actually did this, who at the time could have actually incorporated that in the, which one is it, the narrow wooded river valley?
The landscape character types are in the DGWLCS, which is the wind farm landscape character study, which was undertaken on behalf of the council a while ago. It was somebody external that we got to do that. The revised character types form part of the adopted supplementary guidance that we have on wind energy. But we didn't do these ourselves, but we use them as a tool to assess, what wider developments in the landscape. But the council's landscape architect obviously interprets the landscape character types in the context of the application that comes in.
Councillor Hagman.
Thank you, Chair. So my question is in regards to the council archaeologist's objection. It's written in here, the reasons for the recommendation, but it talks about the indirect effects on the setting of being nationally important. I'm just wondering, if this application was to be successful, does the council's archaeologist have any monitoring effects on the actual development of the site? And what are the direct implications of this? Because it speaks of indirect. Thank you.
If we were to approve the application, we have a whole raft of conditions that we can put on.
Chris, could I just stop you there? That wasn't really a question on the presentation, Councillor Hagman.
Okay, I'll ask that later. Okay, thank you.
Councillor Murray.
Yes, you indicated that there recently been very recently been an approval by the Scottish Government of a wind farm in South Kyle. Is there any? Can you indicate where that might be, and would there be any visual interaction between this site, if it was developed, and the site that's just been approved by the Scottish Government?
Done that. Oh, there we go. I was looking to see if there is a laser pointer on this. Oh, there it is. South Kyle. So we're kind of going. It's up in here. South Kyle. I suppose to answer the question, yes, it would form part of the sort of cumulative assessment. One of the views, actually, you can see the Windy Standard turbines in the background. The Windy Standard ones are these approved ones, just up in here. So they're not that much further away, so they would be visible from round about the application site, yeah.
Councillor Maitland.
Chairman, I realise that you're coming to this very new, but unless you were going to rule the question inadmissible, I would very much like to hear an answer to the question that Councillor Hagman asked, because it's simply a question to officers. And unless you think it's an inappropriate question, I would like to have an answer, please, to the question he asked.
Thank you, Councillor Maitland. We'll grant that request. Councillor Hagman.
The archaeology within the site, yeah. We have conditions that we could put in place with regards archaeology, putting in place a watching brief and what have you. We would anticipate the council's archaeologists would be involved as development proceeds on site. Certainly, there could be there's the potential for on-site mitigation as well, but that's something that could be agreed between the council and the applicant. I've visited the site with the council's archaeologist, which was quite interesting, just as an aside. But yeah, we would be able to make sure that there was as minimal an impact on the archaeology within the site as possible.
Okay, Councillor Ferguson. Oh, sorry, Councillor McCall.
Thanks, Chair. Chris, can you confirm that the Moffat Fell wind farm is no longer an undetermined application? Because my memory serves that it was granted on appeal.
At the time, the report was, and obviously if you go to page 13 of the committee report, it outlines all the other wind farms and wind farm proposals that we consider material. So there is a list within 5, 10 kilometres. Mockram Fell, at the time we wrote this, was undetermined, and that was to the southeast of the application site. Where are we? I think it's maybe just out of the map for this one, but at the time it was undetermined. I was only made aware of the South Currow one just the other week when it came through, but sometimes we miss things in between doing the report and coming to committee. So if it's relatively new, then it's possible we've missed it. But certainly the South Currow one we were made aware of.
Thank you for that correction. Could you also tell me what the minimum separation distance will be between the Southern Upland Way and the turbines the walkers will be passing through?
Off the top of my head, no. I can bring the site plan back up. Is there? So you can see the turbine 9 is the one closest to the Southern Upland Way, and turbine 6 to the north as well.
Does that answer your question, Councillor Cole?
Well, assuming, Chair, that the grid squares are 1,000 metres, their kilometre squares, be about 250, 300 metres. That's what it looks like. Thank you.
Councillor Ferguson and Councillor Carruthers.
Thanks, Chair. I'm kind of looking here at page 23, AA, the Struan-Fregan archaeological sensitive area, and then the paragraph seems to contradict itself, because the ASA description in the technical paper doesn't cover this setting. So does it or doesn't it? I think it's the technical question.
Chris? What we have on page 23 is literally the response that we had from the council's landscape archaeology. The sort of summary of that is further on in the report. I think the technical paper relates. I think there will be it's non-statutory guidance that we have for the LDP with various pieces of supplementary guidance that are adopted, and some that are just technical papers. And I think the ASA for straw and fragging is a non-technical. Well, it's a technical paper, but it's non-adopted guidance.
That answer your question, Councillor Ferguson?
It gives me more questions than answers, to be honest. And I think that, to be fair to Chris, it's a specialist question. And I mean, there's a lot of weight in this report placed on the on our environmental people, landscape architect and other things. And it's really unfair to ask him the question. It's a old hot potato. We've asked for it in the past. And I don't know if these two officers are available to comment or not.
Councillor Carruthers.
Actually, I suppose a lot of my questions are leading into when we would be in session. I think your ruling would have been correct. Your original ruling was, I think, if we're asking questions in regards to the presentation, it's absolutely right. But a lot of questions. There's a lot of conflict within this actual report, and some of the stuff I think is already starting to be teased out through the questions in regards to the presentation. So I'll keep mine for session, Chairman.
Thank you.
Chair, excuse me, I did ask a question if the officers were able to answer the technical questions for her, because it would be unfair to ask Chris to stray away from an area that is his expertise, clearly, the two other very specialist roles. We've asked for this in the past and it hasn't been forthcoming, and given there's a significant part of this report is dependent on those two specialist opinions, surely we should be able to ask them for some clarity, and technical clarity.
It's really the job of the case officer to bring together all of the various consultation responses and to summarise those into the report, and also to understand what is contained within each of the consultation responses. So the case officer should be able to respond to and deal with any questions that you have in relation to this.
I think the technical paper that the archaeologist is referring to, I think he's just saying that the landscape issues that necessarily the landscape architect would look at, whether he's straying away from technically what is his area of expertise. The technical paper covers the archaeologically sensitive area itself purely on archaeological grounds. So any sort of notion of the wider landscape isn't really covered in the technical paper.
Thank you, Chris. Ivor?
Chair, it's on page 21 of the report. It's just paragraph V, the sort of last sentence in there. It is therefore considered that assessment of the magnitude of low impact is an understatement, and it should be medium. Is that a subjective view or an objective view? Is there a firm way of saying that is the case or that isn't the case? So, you've got two experts here saying different things. It's sort of, when you get conflicting advice, it causes me concern. Whereas if they're coming down the same, a lot of them are agreed. This one's actually saying, one person saying one thing, one saying another. What is the difference in that understanding?
Steve or Chris?
Yep. Again, we're referring to the archaeologist's consultation response. He's obviously been through the section of the environmental statement covering the archaeology, and a lot of the assessments that are made he's in agreement with. It's obviously just this point that he feels is different. And in terms of the impacts, we're looking at them in EIA terms as to whether they're significant or not, or what degree of significance we afford to them. So I suppose, like any professional judgment, two people might not necessarily agree the same thing. It was my job to sort of look at all the responses that came in the wider sense. He obviously disagrees with that particular part of the submitted environmental statement, and he thinks that it should be afforded a different weighting.
Jeff?
I don't know this area anyway. I don't know what we're talking about in terms of archaeological sites. Can any of them be seen in any of the photographs which you've presented, the actual archaeological sites themselves?
I don't have any pictures of those themselves. The ones that we took within the site, you can see there are some, you go back, there's remnants of walls, just there, mounds and things within it. The viewpoint that we took from up there was a hill fort. I got a lot of detail as to why that was a good site for a hill fort, but that's what I get for going out with the council's archaeologist on site. But I didn't necessarily take any pictures of that. I was looking at it more in the wider sort of landscape sense.
Is there any other questions? Thank you. Could I ask Fiona Clubb to come forward, please? I can give you 5 minutes for your presentation, and I will let you know when you've got 30 seconds to sum up at the end. Thank you.
Okay. Do I have to press anything here? Am I on? I'm on. Okay, thank you. As a member of the household most severely affected by this proposed development, I am grateful for the opportunity to speak at this meeting. In my original note of objection, I attempted to provide a relatively neutral point of the impact of siting a wind farm within a Glen community. I now take the opportunity to speak subjectively and to explain why the Longburn proposal would be personally devastating. My name is Fiona Clubb, and I am a farmer and rural business strategist. My husband Jim and I came into the community in December 2015 along with a fold of 30 Highland cattle 3 months before we became aware of the Longburn proposal. It was and continues to be our intention to support and contribute to the local economy in our capacity as experienced rural entrepreneurs. We are fully committed to the Council's objectives of a thriving local community, social provision with protection and inclusion of all. Within our inclusion of all policy, we already directly overlook all 14 of the turbines presently at Weatherhill. As far as we are concerned, our community has done its bit for the renewable sector in accepting the inclusion, and that is that. What we are facing is an overwhelming wipeout by the cumulative effect. As the most ridiculous of all the local wind farms proposals on the table, if Longburn goes ahead, I can see no reason why the others will not follow. Emotionally and economically, for those in the local vicinity, this is on a par with the Lowland Scottish clearances. I am a farmer and I work from home. As a farmer, I get no holidays, few days away, and I work predominantly outside. One of the benefits of being a farmer is that despite dreadful climatic conditions, we get to work in a stunning and peaceful location which feeds the spirit in the depths of winter. The coming of Longburn means that my whole existence will be in the bowels of a noisy, busy, flickery wind factory. To make matters worse, the tourist potential of the stunning site at Blackmark will be destroyed, further reducing my ability to build a diverse rural business able to support local employees. Without employees, my chances of leaving the wind factory for a nice break in the peace and quiet will be severely hampered. The B729 between Monive and Carsphairn is a stunning experience for those tourists who enjoy a close relationship with the peace and quiet. It is a highly unusual road in that it affords an above average capacity to stop, get out and experience the peace of the great outdoors. Since my Highland cattle graze on the road between grids, I get to speak to people from all over the world on a daily basis. The message is universal. The beauty of such a diverse landscape and the sound of silence has become a very rare commodity in the UK. The potential in the Strathclyde area for regenerating the rural economy is extremely high. If it wasn't, my husband and I wouldn't have considered it as suitable for a relocation. The threat of ribbon turbine development has put a stop to our business investments for the present time. And with continued reapplications and new applications in the area, we fear the uncertainty. We are now facing a scoping report for the Troston Loch Wind Farm, and the time taken to investigate or oppose these proposals is crippling. For supporters of wind turbines, the path is a lot easier. 87% of the support letters for Longburn came in on the 8th, 11th and 15th of August. And were probably all written on the same paper. It would seem that these letters supporting the wind farm were solicited and coordinated by Burcott. There is no equality of effort between supporters and objectors in this system. The developers are undoubtedly investing time and effort with view to reward, but there is absolutely no benefit whatsoever to the 4 houses which immediately encircle the proposal. The Strathclyde community is as far from the village of Carsphairn as Dunfermline is from Edinburgh. I ask, how would the folk of Dunfermline feel if those in the capital were receiving benefit from turbines planted in Dunfermline's High Street? I understand that the developers on refusal are likely to appeal this matter with the Scottish Government. If the Scottish Government overturn the Council decision and approve the development...
To sum up, Fiona.
Yep. I will be campaigning ardently for all those who wish to leave the Strathclyde community to be evacuated with full and generous compensation for the value of their property and the emotional trauma that many years of campaigning have afforded.
Thank you. Bang on time. Has members got questions? Councillor Ferguson.
Can we put the map up of the site? Can you just, I don't know the geography, can you tell me, show me or guide us to exactly where your business is?
Okay.
How's that one? Is it?
No, the site location would be, is that the...
Yeah.
That's a viewpoint, yeah, the site location. One right at the beginning.
One of them.
The very beginning.
The first one.
The next one on, that's good. Yes, down to the south, if you look directly south of turbines 9 and 10,
yes.
If you carry down beyond the boundary and then down further,
yeah.
That's my house there.
Right, okay.
And my ground goes up to the B729, up to just to the right slightly, just to here, and that's my farm, and I also graze my cattle in the field where the red dot is at the moment.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, Fiona, excellent contribution. That was heartfelt. The business impact on the area, you've mentioned how it could affect you, and obviously you've got plans to be in tourism as well, but could you just give us a little bit of background about what you feel the cumulative effect is of all the wind farms in that area cumulatively over the current business and potential going forward in tourism, agriculture, etc.?
Okay, well, from our site, we presently look directly out of our house windows at the 14 turbines that are presently on Weather Hill. And I believe there's an extension of those, so I'm not sure how many more are going to go up, but say there's going to be another 10, I think it's roughly another 10, so that'll be 24 that we'll look at for sure. From our perspective, if Longburn goes ahead, then we will see at least 3 directly out of our window from the house, and if we go into our garden, we actually see them all. So, because there's the trust in Windfarm has now, there's been the scoping report has come out for that. Together with the Troston, the potential of Troston, the Weatherhill extension, Weatherhill itself, the South Kyle, which will be in the slight gap. There's probably a gap of about that much in our view, where I think South Kyle will probably fill that. Then we've got Longburn. So from our house, we have we're completely encircled, and that there will be a massive cumulative effect, because we can even see Windy Standard in the distance. That actual road is stunning. One of the wonderful things about Scotland in terms of turbines, to give them their due, is that when the mist comes down, which it does quite often in Scotland, we are spared looking at mass cumulative effects, and that's wonderful. We get a break from them for a little while. But on the other hand, when developers go out and they take photographs when the mist is down, then they are misleading the general public, because they're actually blocking the absolutely incredibly beautiful views that are there. And these photographs that you've been shown today do not represent what a stunning road that is, what a stunning landscape. And the potential for tourism along that road is colossal. There's the Southern Upland Way, there's the archaeological sites, it's a fantastic road for tourists to stop on. They drive down, there's loads of laybys, it's very quiet, and they love the peace and quiet. It's the one thing that everybody says, it's such a peaceful place, and it's very, very rare. And to experience that in the UK. When my husband and I moved there, we came with our Highland cattle. We wished to contribute to the local community, not only in a farming sense, but also in a diversified business sense. We are farming without subsidy. We do get beef premium, but we don't get the main farming subsidy. It was our intention to move away from subsidy and to build our own diverse business surrounding our Highland cattle, and on account of the spectacular scenery around us, it was our intention to build a small tourist-based business, which would allow people to come in and experience the Highland cattle close up at hand, and so on. We are a diverse business with many skills, which we can help the local community out with engineering skills and so on, and we are committed to all the council policies regarding inclusion and so on, and are supporters of the biosphere. I hope that answers your question.
Yes. Thank you. Councillor Ferguson, could you switch off your microphone, please? Thank you. Ian.
Thanks, Chairman. Just a very short one in regards to the previous question that was asked round about the visual impact, the cumulative, but have we got a picture that shows it from the actual, the holding that you're talking about, looking around the wind farm itself? Have we got something there, Chris, that we can have a look at, just to add to that previously?
Chris?
The closest one, or the closest visual that I have would be the one from I think I'm maybe by it actually. That one is probably, because that's looking sort of down into the application site. If I could find another one from the south, something like that. No.
Thank you.
Councillor Ferguson.
Just for clarity, Chris, so these are taken from a higher aspect than where the farm actually is. So the farm would be looking upwards as opposed to looking down. So they're not really relevant, are they?
As I say, I didn't. I can't go to every place round about it. These ones are the submitted visuals.
Thank you. Could I ask Fiona Clubb? She's got a prepared statement on behalf of Keith and Patricia Brander. There won't be any questions here because the people aren't here to answer, but you can read out the statement. Thank you. You've got 5 minutes again. I'll give you 30 seconds at the end. I'll let you know when it's 30 seconds at the end to sum up.
Okay. I'm speaking on behalf of Keith and Patricia Brander, who live, have a holiday house at Stonefragan, and they're unable to attend today because of serious ill health. So there's two things I'll read out here. First one from Keith and a second from Patricia. I object to the development of the proposed wind farm on the grounds of its adverse impacts on the rural community, tourism and wildlife and landscape, archaeological heritage and our roads. The present application reduces the number of turbines to 10. The previous section 36 application was for 20, but the adverse impacts of the turbines, the access roads and work areas and the construction and traffic are still unacceptable. The application is flawed and misleading in a number of critical aspects. We are in favour of wind turbines, wind farms that are well located. Longburn is not. We object to the development of the proposed wind farm on the grounds of its adverse impacts on the rural community, tourism, wildlife, landscape, archaeological heritage and our roads. The adverse impacts of access roads, work areas, construction and traffic on all of these are unacceptable. We provided more detail of the damage in our written objections to the current proposal and to the earlier section 36 proposal. Scottish Planning Policy 6 recognised that distance and cumulative impacts matter and that adverse impacts are likely when properties are within 2 kilometres of turbines. The nearest Longburn turbine would be 1,100 metres from our house, and there are 9 houses within 2 kilometres of Longburn turbines. We think that the number of houses within 2 kilometres of turbines should be minimised. The application is flawed and misleading in many places. Some errors are minor, but accumulate to give a distorted picture. For instance, the claim in section 6.9 of their environment status report that the Weatherhill wind farm cannot be seen from Stonefragan Bridge is false. The photo in the ESR was not taken from Stonefragan Bridge. Most of the statements about screening woodland are either false or tendentious. Weatherhill wind farm is fully visible 4 kilometres away from our house, far enough to be acceptable. Longburn contravenes section 4.32 and 4.33 of the local development plan. The trails, guides and leaflets about history and archaeology produced by the Carsphairn Heritage Group have given us, our family and friends who visit, many enjoyable walks and explorations. The proposal would damage a designated archaeological sensitive site, affect the enjoyment of scheduled ancient monuments and sites of national importance and locally the scheduled Smittens Bridge. Section 3.7.5 of the D&G capacity study lists this area as one of the landscapes where capacity for wind farms has been exceeded or is very close to being reached and mentions the higher sensitivity due to the presence of the Southern Upland Way and a network of core paths and promoted heritage trails. They mention cumulative effects in relation to the Kilsmore of Carsphairn and from the ruins of Kells as well as from the Southern Upland Way and striding arches. In our view, this development contravenes the local development plan, will have an adverse effect on the economic, social, ecological and cultural standing of this area and should be rejected.
Thank you. Well within time. Thank you very much, Fiona. Could we have Nigel Spencer, please?
Thank you.
As soon as you're ready, I'll give you
Just
5
need my
minutes.
glasses or longer arms.
I'll wait until you're ready.
Thank you.
5 minutes. Again, I'll let you know when you've got 30 seconds to sum up.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Nigel Spencer. I live at Smittons, directly in front of the proposed wind farm at Longburn. I have no issues with that at all. Workers have been professional and kept everyone informed all through the process over the last 5 years. I've been coming to Dumfries and Galloway for the last 35 years now, fishing, walking, just enjoying the environment. I'm from Bury near Manchester. I worked in the motor trade spraying cars for 40 years. I had breathing issues. I've come to Dumfries and Galloway to get away from all that. 6 years ago we bought Smittons. We sold up and we bought Smittons, which was derelict for about 2 years. I think wind farms are a good thing and benefit everybody. It's brilliant for the local community. Carsphairn had terrible floods last year, and the fund could be put to good use for flood defences. That's my speech. I've just picked a few notes up on what people have said. Is there any chance of having a look at any of them slides?
Could you just finish your statement and then we can go when we are.
Yeah, well, that's my statement, what I've just said. But there's some of them slides, there's issues of, you've got a picture of my house on them slides.
Okay,
Right?
within your 5 minutes, yeah.
It's from the actual fort. You've taken the picture from the fort. That's one. That's my house down in the bottom, overlooking it. And that's the fort just there. The fort's been there, it's an Iron Age fort, it's been there for 5,000 years. The plan for this development is for 25 years. So, and that'll be still there in another 5,000 years. What are we up to? The Sederunt one way. I've been there 6 years redoing that house, and I see 2 people a week maybe walking the Sederunt one way, and I see 1 a month up Strone Patrick Fort. That's the wall. You had a picture before on a viewpoint. That's the wall of the fort which is knocked down. That's the wall around the fort. That on one side it's a wall. On the other side it's like a cliff edge. So obviously that there's a pipe there. They probably put the stones up and they've gathered them there. So just clarify that for you. And another thing, why would you buy a house overlooking a wind farm if you don't like wind farms? So that's me. Any questions?
Thank you. Is that you finish your statement?
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Questions from members? Thank you. Thank you, Nigel. Could you take your seat, please?
Thank you.
I would like to call Fraser Campbell and Tom Barry, please. Again, you've got 5 minutes to put your presentation, and I'll let you know when there's 30 seconds to go to sum up. Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity for myself and Tom Barry to speak today in support of Longburn Wind Farm. Tom's the CEO of Curry European and will voice his own support for the wind farm later. What I would ask members to do today is to consider this application with an open mind. We believe that the committee report presents a very one-sided view of this application. We are surprised and we're disappointed by this because in March of last year, we received an email from Chris to say, as we discussed at our last meeting, the Longburn scheme is marginal and could be argued in either direction. The committee report, in our view, is not fair and balanced, it is inaccurate in places, it's misleading, and has several glaring omissions. We fundamentally disagree with the reasons for the planning officer's put forward in his recommendation, because the objections of the Council's landscape architect and the Council's archaeologist should be balanced against the support from SNH and Historic Environment Scotland. In fact, the objections from the CLA and the CA take up 38 pages of the report, whereas SNH are given only 4 words, which are no adverse landscape effects. HES are given only 2 words to say no objection. I would just like to add that there are no objections from any other statutory consultees, including the MOD, because the committee report looks a little bit misleading in that respect. We've reduced the size of the scheme to 10 turbines in response to consultation with statutory consultees. I just want to add at this point that there is no plans and there won't be any future extension of this project to ramp up the number of turbines in the future. So in terms of the objections from the Council's internal consultees, I just want to say a little bit about that. At 2.7 on archaeology, it cites the potential direct effects on regional heritage assets. I think when you read through the report, though, you can see that either of those effects are potential effects, i.e. they don't know what the effects will be, or they're of moderate significance. There are no high impacts, no high sensitivities. To protect the direct effects, we will appoint an archaeological clerk of works to make sure there are no impacts on the site. The report also cites indirect effects on sites of national importance. Historic Environment Scotland state that the level of potential impacts are now acceptable with this revised scheme. The Council's, at 2.8, the Council's landscape architect's objection has several statements, the first of which is that it introduces large-scale wind farm development at a lower elevation, and also that there will be cumulative effects. Both Black Craigs and Morecambe Fell are at 300 metres AOD, the same as Longburn. So we reject that it's at a lower elevation than other wind farms. The cumulative effects state that there will be effects of windy standard Black Craig and Morecambe Fell. I think the ZTV will show that there's no intervisibility with those wind farms either. Also, there are no turbines in the sensitive LCT4 character area. All of the turbines are in LCT 19A, which are suitable for large turbines. In fact, LCT 19A is a site of the greatest potential for large turbines in the landscape capacity study. There is virtually no visibility at Carsphairn, Moniaiver, Dalry. Previously, the CLA advised that turbines up to 80 metres would be acceptable, although I don't think that appears in the report. So on this site, there is not an in-principle objection to turbines or to wind farm development. It's a case of size of the turbines. I'd just like to finish by saying I'm disappointed that the report, Plan Officer's report, doesn't cover the full socio-economic benefits associated with the project. In addition to the normal community benefit of 5k per megawatt per annum, Longburn also enjoys all of the economic benefits built into the Sandy Now proposal. And that includes a commitment to procure the turbines from wind towers in Macahanish, keeping that procurement in the local economy. Shared ownership offered to a Glen Kens-wide charitable organisation for a 5% share in the wind farm, and a regional procurement policy
30 seconds to sum up.
offering D&G companies a 5% price advantage. I was going to pass you on to Tom, but on you go.
Okay, thank you. Okay, thank you. Good morning. I'm pleased to lend my support to Burcoat Wind and Longburn Wind Farm today as the owner of Curry European Transport. My company, domiciled obviously in Dumfries, and provides transport and logistic services across Western Europe.
I'm sorry, I would have to stop you there. That's 5 minutes, that's it.
Okay.
Open to questions to members. Ivor?
What sort of socio-economic benefits may we get from having this in the area? Maybe either yourself or Mr. Barry could answer.
Thank you. Well, obviously it's a sector that is of great importance and value, and one that we are unable to penetrate at the present time, because all of the other projects up until now are sourced if you like, multinational and go to multinational organisations, making it almost impossible for local organisations like ourselves to be cost competitive, where Burcourt are now offering a cost advantage to local companies and actively seeking to source locally. So it's obviously a great opportunity for ourselves and many other local companies to participate in this project.
Any more questions?
Thank you, Chair. A question I have asked in the past. How many permanent jobs will the wind farm create?
The wind farm will create a permanent job, around 3 permanent jobs over time. Maintenance staff and engineers managing the turbines.
Any more questions?
I've just quickly counted up here, and they're either approved and proposed 504 wind turbines within 20 kilometres plus your proposed development. What would you consider to be too many within a certain area?
The planning policy dictates how many are in a certain area. You know, the majority of turbines that you're talking about there are in the planning system. They're not actually approved or consented or operational. So, in fact, out of the wind farms that are cited in the report, only 3 are operational and 3 are consented. So, right now, I think there's plenty of scope for more wind turbines in that area, especially since the landscape character type, the Council's own landscape capacity study states that, bear with me, landscape character type 19A, southern uplands with forests. The landscape capacity study says, with reference to 80 to 150 metre turbines, should be located within the interior of the more extensive landscape units of this character type, Ken, Carsphairn and Estill without widespread significant visual impact occurring due to the sparse population, absence of roads and limited visibility from more settled areas. That statement accurately reflects Longburn Wind Farm and its situation in the countryside.
John Martin.
He stated it would be 3 permanent jobs over a number of years. How many years? And are these jobs permanently throughout the year? Or is it just at certain times? If they're just at certain times, how long will they be on this wind farm?
No, they're permanent jobs for 25 years of the wind farm. Our joint venture partner ERG are an Italian company. They have 1,800 megawatts across Europe, mostly in Italy, over 1,000 megawatts in Italy, but also France, Poland, Germany. In each of the areas that they've gone into, they've hired their own staff. They're not taking warranty packages from the turbine manufacturers. We're already in discussion with Dumfries College about the wind farm technician course that they do and how we can support that. So, yeah, it's our intention that these jobs will be permanent and they will be for the duration of the project.
Well, how long are they actually going to be on Longburn?
The site there'll be shifts on the site engineering side. I would say that they're permanent at Longburn.
Full-time jobs in that site?
We would consider that there will be maintenance staff and engineering staff on that site permanently, yes.
Okay. Councillor Tate, please.
To the financial situation here. You say in your literature, you highlight the shared ownership structure. Now, can I ask the question, would the communities involved in this, would they be offered shares in this, or would it be a percentage of the operating profits?
The shared ownership model that we use is highlighted in the good practice principles for shared ownership from the Scottish Government. It's 5% share of revenues. The community, we will partner with a community organisation. We're already in discussions with a party that would be interested in taking that share up. They would have to provide an investment in the wind farm, and in return they would receive income from the wind farm. Just to say also that our joint venture partner ERG have made an offer to provide that equity to the community.
Ian?
Thanks, Chairman. I just want to talk about the socio-economic benefits. Could you expand on that? I haven't got it with me certainly, but I think every member of the committee got a hard copy of some information around about the socio-economic benefits. You haven't mentioned any financial figures. You mentioned 3 permanent jobs, but I think through construction phases and so on and so forth, the local economy was for a number of years, and the shared ownership. Could you put some figures to that as well, please, what the potential of that is in that local area?
The overall project cost will be around 30 million. Out of that, about 20% will be open to, or will be used as balance of plant, as we call it, and open to local companies to take advantage of that in respect of this project. We're offering a 5% price advantage to local companies to try and encourage them to get involved in the wind farm. And so far we've had 25 local companies sign up to that initiative, because we feel that if a wind farm is to be in a regional location, then it should involve regional contractors and regional people to in effect construct that wind farm.
Councillor Maitland? Oh, I've got you down. Councillor Hagman?
Thank you, Chair. My question is really in relation to the Southern Upland Way, and what mitigating circumstances could you put together to, or what issues could you put aside so that it wasn't affecting the Southern Upland Way with people's right to access that during the construction phases of the wind farm, if it was to get approval?
Yeah. The Southern Upland Way does run through the site. It's a very lowly used part of the Southern Upland Way. There's no path as such. It's rough walking. There are signposts showing the way, but there's no path or anything like that. We would propose to put in a marked route to allow walkers to walk through the site. We're in discussion with the access officers. From the council's access officer, there's no objection from the council's access officer to the site. There are other wind farms that the Southern Upland Way runs through as well, but we would look after walkers also from a health and safety perspective to make sure that the access was continued on the Southern Upland Way.
Councillor Murray?
Yes, so just a little more detail about the contribution to the local economy. You sent some information out to members of the Planning Applications Committee just through the week there, and you state that the proposed development would cost approximately 30.6 million to develop, of which was 1.1 million for development, 29.6 to construct. But you're saying that around 3 million would be spent within the local economy, 3.6 million within the wider Scottish economy, and it says 1.5 million, but I suspect it's perhaps 15 million that would be spent within the UK economy. So that means that over half the spend would be out with the UK. Is that because it's an Italian company? Or?
No, it's because unfortunately, the only plant in Scotland that manufactures turbine components is in Machrihanish at CS Wind. We have an agreement with them that we will procure the tower components from them, but the bulk of the spend is on turbines themselves, and unfortunately for the Scottish economy and the UK economy, the turbines are built in either Denmark or Germany, and so there are no other suppliers that we would use in terms of turbine supply. So we do as much as we can to put local content into the project, but the turbines themselves have to be procured abroad.
Councillor John Young.
Thank you, Chair. My estimation is that the business rates provided by this venture to Dumfries and Galloway Council will be in order of £60,000 or £70,000 per year. I'm wondering if the contract would include any contribution or insurance to mitigate damage to local roads during the construction of this wind farm, because we had an incident last year where a local road was closed for several days.
The answer to that is yes. What we do normally is put a bond in place with the council to go against damage to local roads. That would be part of the conditions in Section 75 that would go along with the project. So that would be, in effect, covered. In terms of rates, the contribution of rates from this wind farm, actually, I don't know. The contribution of rates from the Sederunt wind farm with 24 turbines is closer to £600,000. So 10 turbines would be in the order of £250,000 per annum.
Councillor Carruthers.
Thanks, Chairman. I was going to leave the session, but I think it's probably appropriate to ask this question now, because it's been mentioned the Clacker Works. There's a lot of mention within the report around about the historical elements in regards to this and how they should be protected. Now you talk about a Clacker Works being resident, I think, if this was to go ahead, and a hamp, which is, I forget exactly, it's some kind of management plan around about historical elements. I wonder if you could just, now that we've got it here, just get a chance to, I'd like to hear what that actually means in real terms. What does that mean in the grounds in regards to protecting the historical element that's on this site?
Well, I think there's two elements to the objection from the council's archaeologist. The first part relates to indirect effects on setting for nationally important monuments. I think it's important to say that Historic Environment Scotland say that those effects are acceptable effects. In terms of direct effects on regional assets, the archaeological Clarker Works job is to make sure that if any excavations are ongoing or roads are being put in, that they keep an eye on making sure that those assets are protected. Most of the assets on the site are covered over, so the foundations are there, but the landscape has covered them over. There's very few that are visible in the landscape, but we would make sure that they're protected. I think the Council's archaeology report also reflects that there is, I think they use the word potential or potentially about 10 times throughout the report, which means that there is uncertainty about what's actually on the ground there, and we would provide the protection to make sure that these assets were not damaged in any way by the wind farm. We have, if we have to relocate turbines, there's normally a microsighting distance that we can move turbines within, and we would use that to minimise or to stop any damage. I think it's also worth saying that our archaeologists disagree completely with the Council's archaeology report, and so I think it says something that there's 38 pages dedicated to landscape and archaeology advice, when the Historic Environment Scotland advice is given 2 words. I think that tells you a lot about how the report's been written. In terms of the Heritage Access Management Plan, this is something we've worked out with the local heritage group so that they can access the site and undertake archaeological work on the site as an amateur thing.
Ian?
What sprung to mind was there's a lot of mention recently at local and national around about the hoard and it being kept in Kirkland. If for some reason you came across something like that, just to make sure that this type of discovery, you could say, was protected, and just to get the reassurances that that would be in place, that type of methodology and work in practice.
Absolutely, that's exactly what would happen. The turbines would move. If we were to dig foundations for a turbine and uncovered archaeological remains, then what we'd do is move the turbine and put it in a place where it doesn't have archaeological remains.
Okay, does that answer your question? Okay, thank you. John Young?
Yes,
thank you, Chair. Mr Campbell, in the previous answer you said the contribution in rates to Dumfries and Galloway Council will be approximately £250,000 a year. So over the 25-year period, that's about £6.25 million. On page 52, it says in the notes, the contribution to non-domestic rates, to non-domestic business rates revenue of 1.8 to 1.9 million. Which figure's correct?
Yeah, those, I wasn't aware of those figures. What I was doing was, we have a rates valuation for Sederunt Wind Farm. The rates assessment has changed in terms of renewables in the last year, and so that might account for some of the discrepancy, but I wasn't aware of that figure. I was just extrapolating back from Sederunt to get to £250,000.
Thank you. If there's no more questions, Councillor McComb.
Thanks, Chair. Mr Campbell, you highlighted earlier on that there were no objections from Scottish Natural Heritage. But if you read the statement, it says, SNH advice is that there will be no adverse impacts on landscape features, and then you've got avian and non-avian ecological interests of national or international importance. So I think we need to get that into context. There will be impacts, adverse impacts in terms of a regional scale. Is that not the case, Mr Campbell?
I think that every wind farm has impacts at a local level, and I think that's true of Longburn. I think Longburn has fewer impacts than other wind farms, because most of the visibility is within 10 kilometres of the wind farm. So, and I think if we could get the ZTV on the screen, I think that would show that. So, SNH have evaluated the wind farm as in relation to their guidance, and have said that there's no adverse landscape effects.
Yes, but their guidance relates to national or international importance.
No, I think their guidance is SNH for a statutory consultee. They provide the guidance relating to the Scottish policy on how to evaluate wind farm impacts. They've said there's no adverse landscape effects, no effect on the features of the landscape. So the council's LDP is then derived and put into place to cover local impacts and local locational guidance. This wind farm is in an area where large typology turbines are acceptable. So I think it says something in the report that the SNH guidance, the SNH advice is scant compared to the 19 or so pages that the landscape architect's advice is given. And that was the point I was trying to make. SNH say there are no landscape effects. The wind farm is in an area of greatest potential for wind farms.
Okay, thank you very much. If there's no more questions, thank you, Fraser and Tom.
Thank you.
I'll ask you to take your seats, please. We're now in session. Okay, Councillor Carruthers.
I suppose, Chairman, a lot of questions were answered in regards to the question I had, but obviously, I think for me, and I think probably the committee start become aware of this, but something as large and significant in regards to this, I think it should, a site visit should be considered, hear the views of other members, but there's the objector who came and spoke, made it very clear what her reasons were. It's around about visual impact. The reasons for refusals is around about the landscape and the impact it has in it, the visual impact. I think, it's only right we should at least consider that, Chairman, and to properly understand what the real visual impact is around about there. Again, it would let us understand what is actually on the ground in regards to these historical elements I spoke about earlier. Very, very keen to see a site visit if we possibly can. just in order, I think, to take this seriously, the size and scale, and there is a real conflict as well within the report between the national the national bodies, SNH and Historical Environment Scotland, and our local archaeologists and landscape architects. There seems to be a complete conflict in view, so I'd like to understand that and see that visually myself, Chairman. I would happily support a site visit.
So are you proposing a motion?
Absolutely would propose one, Chairman. Hopefully they get their backing.
Yeah, I think it's fairly clear that we don't know what's involved in terms of the cumulative aspect, and even the reference to the Southern Upland Way, which I envisage actually being a path, appears to be a route on a map. So I don't think we know sufficient about what the effect is going to be in this area, so I would probably second that in this instance.
Is there anyone likewise minded? Councillor Murray?
Yes, we're not just trying to get a day out, honestly, but I just don't feel I know this part of Dumfries and Galloway well enough to really assess what the impact of this development would be. The other thing actually I would like to request, which is slightly different, is we've got Weatherhill nearby. We've also got Windy Standard to the north of it. We've got Windy Standard Phase 2, and now we've got very recently South Kyle, and I don't know if there's any way in which we can actually get some sort of indication from the visuals that have been produced for those applications as to what the cumulative effect of all those things, because we know that some of these are actually going to happen. And is it possible to get some sort of visual of what that is going to look like when those are all up, while we're considering it?
Thank you, Councillor Murray. Is there anyone opposed to a site visit? Councillor Ferguson.
Actually a technical question of whether Lucy or Steve, would that, because this is not just about visual impact, it's also about the environmental impact that's been mentioned here. Is it possible for the environmental and the landscape architects to be on site to answer questions from members when they're there? Is that doable?
Chair, no, it's not possible for them to answer questions because the purpose of the site visit is just to allow members to familiarise themselves with the site itself, and for somebody to be on hand to point out all of the features of note that members should be aware of. But I'm mindful of some of the comments that have been made, and I will certainly try to arrange, if it's the will of the committee to have a site visit and we come back into session at a future meeting, given the detailed nature of the questions that are being raised, I'll endeavour to make sure that we have those people available at your next meeting.
Ian?
Just on that point, I mean, I was going to ask the same point when it comes, if everybody's agreed, but I think if we can't have them on site, we absolutely need them here. We need that level of expertise. I think there'll be a lot of technical questions around about the report itself and what we see in site potentially.
Okay.
Through you, Chair, we have a motion put forward by Councillor Crothers and seconded by Councillor Lever to go on a site visit. Are all members agreed?
Thank you.
And in relation to item 4, members have agreed to go on a site visit.
Okay, thank you everyone. We'll now go to number 5 on the agenda, which is the Moffat Academy Road. Moffat applications for A, planning permission for alterations and change of use of the former school to form 26 flatted dwellings, a total of 19 one-bedroom units and 7 two-bedroom units, erection of 3 new detached buildings comprising of 15 one-bedroom residential units, incorporating partial demolition of existing buildings attached to the rear of the school building, formation of 75 car parking spaces, including 6 disabled spaces, formation of landscaping and associated works. This is application number 16/1514/full, and B, listed building consent for external and internal alterations to bring about the change of use of main school building and front extension to form 26 flatted dwellings, partial demolition of existing buildings attached to the rear, application 16/1513/LPC. And we'll get a presentation from Chris. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just to point out to members, the case officer in your papers is listed as Andrew Robinson. Unfortunately, my colleague Andrew was taken to hospital last weekend with a ruptured appendix. He's recovering at home, so I've been asked to step in and present this one. And just on a side note as well, I went to Moffat Academy for a very long time, so I kind of know the site. So that's my interest. So, as we've said, this is effectively two applications in one. The first application is for the change of use and demolition of parts of the school. The main part of the school, what we'll refer to as the main building, runs east to west on the application site. So it's this part here that says Moffat Academy. The site itself lies to the north of the town, just adjacent to the A701, and it's allocated in the LDP as a mixed-use site. So residential use falls within that as well. The demolition. Let's have a wee look here. So this is the existing school building, the main building running north to south now, is in here. The part that's been retained is the main building plus what was the science block, which is the bit sticking on the north, it's closest to number 8 Hartop Place. All the buildings to the west, so to the rear of the main building, what was the dinner hall, the gym, and some classroom spaces, they're all being demolished, and 3 additional new blocks of flats are being put in. And here's our proposed site with extra car parking and open space included in this one as well. This is just a layout of the first level. And then the upper levels, there are some level differences between the rear of the site and the houses down on Beech Grove, which we'll see just very shortly. And these are the upper levels of the 3 proposed blocks. These are existing elevations. The listed building part of the application is mainly for external and internal alterations, as opposed to the demolition of the newer bits of the school to the rear. So here you can see the level differences to the houses directly adjacent on Beech Grove. So the rear of the school does sit a bit higher up than the houses down there. And there's the main building. And looking up to the science block. And that's looking back down to the rear of the houses on Hartop Place, and the A701 is the main road running just to the right of the picture, and that's looking back across the playground. This is to the rear of Hartop Place, and this is the science block elevation, which is being retained. And that's it taken from the Whins next door. This is the rear car park. The bit in the back just here is proposed to be developed, not developed, demolished. And these are form part of the buildings, the classrooms that are being demolished as well. And this is looking down from the car park. This is the service areas. There's a substation just out of shot to the left of the picture. This is looking from the back of the site. There's a house just in at Gallows Well. And this is looking into the kitchens and what was the dinner hall. Down into Beech Grove, looking up. and just some of the listed building detail. Some of the windows, they're proposing to change a lot of the windows for conservation style units. We're going to go to some internal shots as well. This is going upstairs in the old part of the school. That's the downstairs corridor with classrooms to the right. And the Heary's office was just down to the left. I was only in there a couple of times. These applications are recommended for approval for the reasons outlined in the report.
Thank you, Chris. Could we have questions on the presentation, please? Councillor Maitland.
What is proposed for the science block? Can you go back to that? Using the photographs as reference, maybe you could talk us through what is expected to go onto the science block.
If I just go back a bit, it's the science blocks to be retained, and it's there's a variety of flats. There will be some new window openings and things for these, but essentially the science block and the main block are being retained and they're being converted internally into flats. 41 in total. I think the 3 blocks that are being proposed to the rear, they contain 15 of the flats. So the bulk of the 1 and 2 bedroom flats will be in the main building and what was the science block.
Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Chair. Yes, it doesn't seem to have much architectural merit, I have to say, the science block. But anyway, what I wanted to ask is, you had a slide showing Beech Grove and the height of the current school building. I just wondered if you could give me any indication as to what the height of the proposed development would be compared to what's currently there.
I would just need to refer back to the plan just here. I wouldn't be able to put a figure on that.
Is it higher or lower than the?
It's a good bit higher. The original school building does sit a lot higher than the houses in Beech Grove. There's a steep part.
Yeah, I know. Sorry, I'm not being made self-clear. I know the houses in Beech Grove. I mean, the building which is the proposal, is it higher or lower than what is currently there?
These are the existing elevations. So what we would be looking at is auto place facing in here, and then they're roughly the same. If I can go back, you've got a bit more development just in here, as you can see, but the building's roughly the same height as what's there. That's the gym hall by the looks of it.
Councillor Hagman.
Thank you. I was just wondering if you had any slides on sort of the artistic impression of the finished buildings, because obviously we're being asked to approve. And is there any? We've got these slides that you've shown, but is there any other slides to see?
There might be some within the actual application file itself, other than the proposed elevations that we've got there. I haven't got anything else to hand for that one. I was just kind of asked to step in at the last minute for this one. We have had an input from the council's built heritage officer with that as well. So her consultation response is on page 66 of your report. So I know there have been some changes to the scheme as it's come in for the better. I understand, having had the input from my colleague in Built Heritage. So, but other than the proposed elevations, I can't really give you anything else, I'm afraid.
Okay, thank you very much for that. We can now go in session. Councillor Carruthers and then Councillor Hislop.
Thanks, Chairman. Just, it's on page 81. Just, it's the affordable housing element. I wonder if you could just explain that to me, Chris, please, just so I fully understand it. Just at the bottom of page 81, it looks okay, but it's in particular there's a restriction on 1 bedroom, can it be made up to 2 bedrooms? I just wonder, is that a good thing? Is that a bad thing? Maybe I just wonder, especially we spoke about a lot within what was previously the housing subcommittee, and 1 bedroom certainly can help in regards to what's been previously deemed as the bedroom tax. But sometimes as people are getting older, it's marketed at over 50s. They need a second room for carers and so on and so forth. As people get older, would that restriction have an adverse effect? And that is what was going through my mind.
Chris?
I think part of the proposal includes some units that are notionally, and certainly from what I've read in the supporting information that was lodged with the application, there are some units available for carers to come into for that. But in terms of the overall affordable housing unit, I mean, I think it's been our policy for a while that 1 bedroom units don't attract. They don't fall into that. Whether that's I suppose that's a wider question for members, but we're just looking at the policy as it is.
Ian?
No, thanks very much. I mean, I understand that, and that's probably I would read the policy as well. I just wonder, is there will there be a difficulty in years to come when about if somebody needs a carer overnight, it's a 1 bedroom, and it will happen. I mean, a lot of the care packages are overnight care. It's starting to become that way anyways for elderly people. It's changing dramatically. I just wonder, has it been considered there might be an adverse effect in regards to having this condition? Is it too onerous in that aspect? Maybe it can't be answered that today, but certainly it's what pinged into my mind as I was looking at it.
Okay, thank you. Ivor?
Chair, I've looked at this and I think it's one of these things where we need to make sure that we get a new development on this site, and this looks to be one that could be fitted onto the site. One thing I do take a wee bit of difference of opinion is with the developer, where he says over 50s shouldn't be considered for looking at educational things, because my dad was 53 when I was born, and he used to love going getting his pension and the family allowance at one time. So there's still hope for us, and it keeps a lot of us men going in the long term, possibly. But the chance.
I was just going to say that, Councillor Ferguson, is that a planning issue?
But I think we should be looking to develop something like this, because I know in my former ward, which was the Noble Hill Park, there's a development in there whereby older people can move in and there is a sort of care in there. And I think this is moving towards something like that, where we're looking to develop somewhere people can actually, if they want to downsize from a big house and get into a flat, into an area where the stage is now, this looks like a good idea, and I would actually move the recommendations as stated in the report.
Do we have a seconder for Councillor Hislop? We've still got a few more questions. I've got Councillor Young, Councillor Maitland, and then Councillor Ferguson.
Thank you, Chair. This development's targeted at the over 50s. I'm concerned about the fact that a lot of these residents will eventually have mobility problems. First, a couple of questions. Is there any lift access between the 2 floors? And secondly, a lot of these residents will eventually be using mobility scooters. Is there storage, or how will get the residents on the first floor get their mobility scooters garaged, looked after?
I honestly couldn't say. As I say, it's not being the case officer dealing with this one. I honestly don't know is the answer. Sorry.
Could I just maybe offer as well that what you're quoting there is what the developer has suggested would be a marketing approach, but the actual units themselves are regarded just as general purpose housing units. They're not being considered from the point of view of being aimed at elderly people, or certainly they're not considered to be sheltered in any way. So that is a marketing approach that's being used by developers. So it's not certainly something that we've taken into account in terms of our assessment. There are requirements that are addressed through the building regulations. So when it gets to building warrant stage, there are certainly requirements in terms of disabled access, for example, that would equally apply to elderly.
Yeah, thank you. Councillor Maitland.
Yes, I'm going back to the business of the affordable housing, the 1 and 2 bedroom housing, the developer contribution issue, and the fact that we've conditioned any proposed agreement with this to say that we would have to receive back another application if somebody wanted to knock two 1 bedroom flats into one, make it a 2 bedroom. I mean, do you think there's an element of sort of perverse incentive? I noticed that actual fact now, we don't require a developer contribution for this. Education has responded, I think, in paragraph 4.42 to say that this wouldn't require it. And, you know, I do sort of wonder that had that been the case at the very beginning, would we have seen some more 2 bedroom flats come forward? It's just a thought that, that we need to think about how we structure this. Because I agree with fellow elected members, the last thing we want is to create a situation where we are kind of forcing people into developing 1 bedroom flats when 2 would be really much more sensible. In the condition, would it be the case that if somebody did want to knock it back together again later on, would that incur developer contribution? A proposal to change it? I'm just thinking whether we should condition it that would incur developer contribution at that point, and whether that's something you would do through condition or whether it would come through as a result of our policies.
Steve. Thank you, Chair. Just a couple of points there. In terms of clarification with regard to developer contributions, you're quite correct in what you're saying about the education contribution. That is no longer required, and it was also caught by the recent changes to the supplementary guidance, which actually state that not only are 1 bedroom units exempt, but also conversions to residential are exempt, because you'll recall that we didn't want to put in place barriers to the reuse of brownfield sites, and in particular the conversion of a listed building. The other aspect of developer contributions here is in relation to affordable housing, and the policy statement on affordable housing does make it clear that the exemption only applies to 1 bedroom units. So it would only be the affordable housing element that's avoided by having 1 bedroom units. Should such a condition, first of all, be considered unacceptable by the applicant, they have the right to appeal that condition. Or alternately, if they want at some point in the future to come back in with a proposal that doesn't comply with the condition, then we would take that as a fresh application and bring it back to committee.
Thank you. Councillor Ferguson.
Thanks, Chair. It's been kindly asked and answered, but my question then falls for that then. Why is it in the paper? Because 4.42 should just read, there are no developer contributions required for education. Because it kind of it's all over the place, and I know we need to draw the line between telling the story and giving us a factual report, and you know, because telling the story sometimes gives us things the factual report doesn't. But increasingly we're getting reports which are longer and longer and longer, and a lot of things could actually be taken out, because it obviously wasn't the case when the report went to print that the first part of 4.42 was relevant. The only relevant part of 4.42 is that there's no developer contributions toward education required. Then the one sentence could have read something like, now I appreciate it's a moot point, but the other thing that I'm looking at, and I'm kind of jumping ahead here to the conditions, and I'm just like to discuss it before we actually get to make a decision or not. At in page 84, the second bullet point of 1 is, is it beyond the realms of possibility, for example, that could actually raising the levels of access and installing slot drains? Because I'm very well aware that is an area that actually floods, and the floods can be quite catastrophic. And if the water gets to the wrong place, you'll see with the second bullet point, Steve, you're kind of raising the levels of access and installing slot drains, because that would give us the double insurance policy. I'm kind of jumping myself a wee bit here, but just looking for advice on that.
I imagine the condition that's on is at the behest of our colleagues in the flood risk management team. I take it you're, and if I can just kind of clarify the point, you think that we should have both a raised level access and the slot drains as opposed to either or? Would that be, is it more, is that the...
I think if I was the person concerned and there was a reasonable doubt at all that might actually happen, I would like to have both insurance policies in place, and I'm just wondering whether it's competent to actually ask for that or not. I think that's my question.
As Chris said, this really reflects the detailed technical advice that we've had from the council's own flood risk management team. So I would suggest that we stick with the wording that we have there. But clearly, when they submit the detailed proposals, there's going to have to be ongoing discussion with them to ensure that this issue is correctly dealt with to the satisfaction of the flood risk management team. The issue again about the kind of elderly residents, just again to remind you that this has been assessed as just a general purpose private sector development. It's not in planning terms. It's not accommodation specifically for older people. That's really a marketing approach that the developers are taking.
Can I come back in, John? Without making this go on forever, what I'm trying to get to here is if you decide through the officer involvement afterwards that they're going to go for raising the level of access, right, to then install the slot drains, would they have to go through another process? Or can we cover both at this stage,
That could be dealt with as part of the signing off of the condition. So that there wouldn't be a further process for the applicant to go through.
Okay. Councillor McKee.
Hi, thanks, Chair. Just a couple of items. On page 86, item 9, you're on about development of the landscaping scheme and whatnot. I think what we've got to recognise nowadays, we got all these things put in place and everybody forgets about maintenance. Can we put something in there to ensure that maintenance is carried out on these things for the lifetime of the development? And the other one was, seems to be a big issue, item 6 on page 87. This satellite dishes and this, that and the next thing. In this day and age, can we no fit one satellite dish and wire every flat to get a service from that satellite dish? And if that's needed, telecommunications as well, that surely to goodness they cannot come through the one place and a wire's run to every house to provide these services. If people use them right, they pay for them. If they didn't use them, they didn't pay for them. But in this day and age, surely to goodness that should be part of the development of the building.
Chris, can you answer that?
Certainly with regard to the landscaping, I haven't had a look through the conditions that Andrew's put on. I mean, I suppose we could add an additional condition on about landscaping, being for the lifetime of the development. It's not explicitly stated in either of in either of the conditions for that. So I suppose that would be fairly straightforward.
We do have a standard condition that we would normally apply to landscaping schemes, requiring them to submit to us for agreement and approval details of the ongoing maintenance. So we could capture that if we add that standard condition in. If we add the standard condition on landscape maintenance into this, if that's the will of the committee.
I think it's important that these things are put in because, as I say, there's too many of these developments. Landscaping's are there, and it gets out of hand after a number of years. It needs to be maintained all the time.
And your second point was?
To do with the telecommunications and television, satellite dishes and that sort of thing. There's an issue here about no wanting satellite dishes all over the wall, and I could see what would happen there, in for every flat. Surely to goodness, in this day and age, the developer can site one aerial and all the necessary wiring for the TV and for telecommunications. All the wiring can be put in place during the development, and no coming along and ad hoc over the years.
Yeah, I'm not technically minded, but if we end up with one, could we end up with something like Jordal Bank? I'm not so sure.
I mean, it's essentially a matter for the developer. We certainly wouldn't want to see a proliferation of satellite dishes, individual satellite dishes across a listed building. That's for sure. So it would be incumbent on the developer to come up with a solution to that.
Can I just say the condition requires those details to be submitted. So in theory, if we don't like them, then we can suggest an alternative or work till we get an acceptable compromise. But the condition allows that flexibility.
John Young.
I just wondered, this development has 75 parking places. Should we not have a percentage or a proportion of these spaces fitted for electric car charging purposes? And should that not be a consideration of future applications of this type?
Steve? Or Chris?
It's not something currently that's required by policy, but it's certainly an issue that we should perhaps take up with our roads colleagues. It's not something that features in the responses that we get from them. But certainly, I think maybe through LDP2 and some of the supplementary guidance associated with LDP2, it's an issue that we should be looking at.
Jim?
Thanks, Chair. Moffat Community Council mentioned the possibility of a large culvert under the school building. Has that issue been satisfactorily resolved?
Chris?
So I'll just have a look over the response that the flood risk management team gave. They do highlight the culverted water body located in the vicinity of the development site. They've not provided an objection, sort of based on the flood risk assessment that was submitted. I mean, there are recommendations for that with regard to the freeboard of the houses, and I'll need to check the conditions, but certainly the condition we looked at before, we were certainly carrying across recommendations from the flood risk management team. Wait, look at the wrong one.
Councillor Ferguson.
The assumption quite naturally here has to be that these houses are for sale. As a council, we don't have any of our own houses anymore, but I'm wondering here whether there's a factor fee for A, the maintenance, and B, because each and every title deed will have a share of responsibility for maintenance of the property. I know, for example, personal experience, we had a 4 in a block in Glasgow, and we had a quarter share of and a monthly factor fee, which meant the basic upkeep round about the building was maintained. And given that, I mean, I'm totally supportive of this because I think it's a really good site and it's much needed in that area. But I think we need to make sure that we didn't end up with a situation where we've got 20 or 30 people agreeing to pay something and another 20 or 30 people saying no. And I don't know if there's a way we can build that into the recommendations. Steve, I'm kind of looking at you for guidance here.
It's not. It's not something that that we could insist on. Certainly through what we've just been discussing about the landscaping maintenance. Quite often there will be a combined factoring arrangement that comes forward, but it's not something that we would exercise control over. It's really a matter for the developer to resolve through the missives with the individual owners.
The reason else, the other reason is exactly what Jock was talking about, the proliferation, of one area, for example, shared, and it's a shared facility, It does away with that, particularly in a very scenic area like Moffat, the top end of the High Street. Loads of tourists and everything going by. You really want it to be in the Cheers was like Jodrell Bank,
Okay, thank you. We have a motion on the table from Ivor. Have we got a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor Giusti. Is it Giusti or Giusti? Sorry. Giusti. Thank you. Is there any amendments? Additional standard landscaping condition? Yeah. Okay.
And I can confirm that members have agreed in relation to item 5 to approve, subject to A, the successful completion of Section 75 obligation within 6 months of the date of the decision or any extended timescale as agreed by the appointed officer. And B, the successful conclusion of a contribution towards open space under Section 69 of the Local Government Scotland Act 1973 within 6 months of the date of the decision or any extended timescale as agreed by the appointed officer, and C, conditions, and with the additional recommendation to include the standard landscaping condition.
Thank you very much. We'll now move on to item 6, which is land to east of eco-deco plant, Shanks. The west of Dargavel Store, Lockerbie Road, Dumfries, planning application for zero waste park to include the erection of store, effluent tank building, bio-waste reception building, Recyclates Store Building, secondary treatment facility building, shop and workshop building incorporating roof-mounted photovoltaic panels, and 2 site offices, recycling and composting. And we have Claire Eckstein to give us a presentation. Thank you, Claire.
Thank you, Chair. The application before us reflects the modifications to the Zero Waste Park scheme since it was approved in February 2013, and works commenced on the site, which have required a new application for planning permission to reflect the new buildings and designs, and which accommodate new technology, and also a change to the site boundary. That's it, sorry, it's working now. Okay. Right. So this is showing where the application site is. Obviously, it's between the Shanks eco-deco plant One side will be the existing household waste recycling centre, which will be closed as a result of the development when it's moved to the new zero waste park. So this shows the off-site works with a drainage connection now along the A709 as Shanks eco-deco retaining their landscape bund and access through their site. So they're now putting the drainage along the main road. This is a proposed block plan. As you will note from the site photographs, shortly the access and way bridges and Suds features have been formed, and the large particle recyclate building, which is in the centre, is being built, or they put the foundations in for as approved. So I've just given just a brief indication of the various buildings that are going up. If you look on table 1 of page 93 of your report, that will cross-reference back to the various buildings. This is the Balky's building, which lies closest to the Scotgen Plant. And then we've got the next one, which is the composting building, which is in the northern corner closest to the Shanks eco-deco. And this is the dry recyclist facility. And this will be for the refuse collection vehicles and storage. And the final one here is the small particle treatment building, which lies in the southeastern corner, sort of furthest away from the road. And these are the proposed site offices. And this shows the workshop building. Having a good time with this. Right, so onto the photographs. So this is looking east along the site frontage with the A709, with the site to the left. And then we've obviously got from the east again, looking at the Shanks, which is the eco-deco plant, which is a grey building in the centre of the photograph. And this is the site entrance of the A709, showing the existing turning lane, which has already been formed. This is looking west along the A709. And this is showing just panning sort of virtually right from that previous photograph. This shows the boundary fence beside the landscape bund associated with the Shanks eco-deco, which is now excluded, was included previously in the last application, but it's now excluded. So we're at the main site entrance, which is showing the weighbridge and kiosks, which have already been built, and then this is just panning left from that previous photograph, just with the weighbridges and kiosks. This is me. So this is in the centre of the south boundary. I'm actually standing on an elevated position with these photographs. Luckily, this is just material that's been dumped just during the process of construction. So there's all the subsequent photographs are based on this position. So we're just looking towards the Scotgen Plant out with the site, and then we're just panning left again. This is looking across towards Dargavel Stores with Scotgen to the right, and again this is looking panning left again. Sorry. Towards Dargavel Stores, with the blue building within the site itself. That's the one that's now being retained and being reused. And again, looking towards the A701 with the Shanks eco-deco. And this shows some of the internal roads that have been constructed under the 2012 application. And again, this is just looking left again, and you can see the sort of Suds features that have been formed, and that's just in the background. You can see the sort of former Lockerbie landfill site, which has been restored. And panning left again. And this is just giving you an indication of the Suds features in the southeast corner that have already been created. And this is looking along the Suds feature. And this is within the site, looking back towards the existing Suds, and then just looking across the site towards sort of Dargavel Stores, and then panning left again across the site towards Dargavel Stores and the weighbridge and the kiosk. This is panning left along the boundary fence, which is with the eco-deco shanks plant with the bund feature to the left, immediately to the left, and towards the A709. And this is the northwest corner, again looking along the boundary fence with the eco-deco unit on the right, and panning left again. So this is just looking across the site. You see it sort of half developed. We're now within the site itself, back in the northeast corner, looking towards the eco-deco, and again panning left again. And this is looking towards Dargavel Stores. And this is within the site. This is the existing building, which I mentioned, the blue building, which is being reused. This is the front of it, and this picture here shows the rear of that building, which is going to be reused. So a full assessment of the proposal has been set out in the report and reflects the changes to the partly implemented zero waste park previously approved. As I mentioned before, the changes relate to changes to the boundaries to exclude the Shanks eco-deco bund and include the existing building on the site, which is the blue one in the photograph. And then, of course, the size, design and layout of the buildings to incorporate the technological advances and changes to sort waste so that it creates a higher quality output and helps to divert more waste from landfill and to meet with the Scottish Government targets on waste regulations. The revised scheme is noted on Table 1 as part of the application, and consultations were undertaken with no objections being raised. It is noted in the SEPA response in paragraph 2.1 that the site would fall under their waste management licensing regime, and it is this element that controls the operation of the site rather than planning. The Council Roads Officer have raised no objections, noting the works on the A709 have been undertaken, and they have then discussed the internal parking vehicle tracking within the site, noting that traffic for the new household waste recycling centre will be controlled and kept separated from the rest of the zero waste park site. They also note that traffic movements will be transferred from the existing household waste recycling centre, which is beside the eco-deco, when it is closed and the new facility is opened, and this site will be restored. I think I've got some photographs just of that showing the existing household waste recycling centre. As noted in the report, the principle of the zero waste park is established, and the revisions of the proposal are considered acceptable, and it is recommended that they are approved subject to the conditions noted.
Okay, thank you, Claire. Has any members got questions on the presentation? Ivor?
Chair, it's with regard to the consultations we had through SEPA. On page 95, it says surface water drainage as shown in the Suds site control features. 2 surface water outfalls are proposed to the small water course adjacent to the site, which runs to Locher Water. And later on in the paper, drainage, sporting document notes that surface water runoff would increase. Is that into the Locher Water, and has I'm not sure what the group's called that runs the Locher Water, have they been consulted on this and any possible impacts that additional water runoff may have on the Locher system?
Claire?
Yeah, sorry. This time round, the Locher Water, I think it's the management committee, and they're basically the sort of agricultural-based thing that was set up when they did the improvements to the Locher Water. They weren't consulted this time round, but basically the controls will be done by SEPA, and that's why the Suds scheme is there to help with that. So the amount of water should be controlled rather than it just going directly into the watercourse. And you can see that the Suds scheme has actually already been put into place, and there's been ongoing discussions between SEPA and the council to ensure that it's fine.
Councillor Maitland.
Thank you, Chairman. Two questions, please. The bund, why is the bund excluded from the current application? Question one. And question two is, could you give me an idea, please, about the height of the, I think it's called the Moggerson building, in respect, roughly, of the Shanks building next door?
Claire.
Right, in regards to the bund, that's was part of the Shanks eco-deco plant application, and it was intended originally that would be incorporated into this scheme, but there's clearly been a breakdown, and Shanks are retaining that element within their site. So that's why, as part of this proposal, they've had to re-alter the alignment of the buildings and this sort of thing so they can fit it within the revised site boundaries. In terms of the heights of the building, I think you're referring to on page 93, the Morganson, which I think is what they also refer to as a small particle treatment building. Yes, that height is 23.1 metres high. Just to put this into perspective, it is now higher than some of the surrounding buildings. Just to put this into perspective, the Shanks building, its height at eaves is 15.5 metres, and the chimney is 17.5. So you can see, so that one there is 15.5 to the eaves and 17.5 at the highest point. And then the Scotgen building, which is the building, you can see it at the bottom corner. Yeah, sorry, just past it. Yeah, that is 11.75 and 8.85 with a 22.5 metre high chimney. So that gives you an idea. Does that answer you?
Councillor Maitland.
It does, yes. Although I remain confused about the bund issue and what impact that has upon, the looks of this particular development. I wonder if somebody could actually help me physically. Can we look at a block plan or a location plan, explain what is actually happening because that piece has been excluded from this?
Yeah, if you look at centre circle. Oh yeah, got bad eyesight. Right, that's the bund we're referring to, which has now been excluded from the site. So the site boundary before was the original proposal was here. So it doesn't affect the frontage boundary at all, and these are the existing bunds that have been, built already.
Councillor Lear.
Yeah, reference is made in the application to the formation of a service tunnel connection to the Scotgen Plant. What's the nature and the purpose of that? And also many years ago, when some of the planning applications were decided by the Industrial Area Committee, we stipulated that any new commercial buildings should have seagull proofing built into them. Is that going to be the case in this? Because once again, given the nature of this building, it could be an attractant to seagulls, and I certainly wouldn't want to use the facility if we're going to be mobbed by seagulls at this time of the year.
Right, that is the link that was to the Scotgen that's proposed from the site. It's just an internal link. Scotgen was designed as a waste from energy plant. We're not actually sure of the status of it at the moment. It's sort of working or not working, not really sure. But if it has ever worked, yeah. But if it does work, then there's the ability to connect to it, which would just be a connection through here. What was the other point you raised? Sorry. Oh, seagull. Don't think. Don't think we actually have a condition on seagull proofing, and memory, I don't think that was on the previous application either.
Jeff, would you like to come back on that?
Yeah, well,
But certainly, I think we could probably, we could put it in as an advisory directive, and I'm sure the council would given it's their scheme, probably take that into account.
I think that should be a condition, proper seagull proofing, because in Huntington Road, the units built along there, was merely a row of spikes along the top of the building and a row of spikes along the eave. And when you look, the seagulls actually incorporate the spikes into the nest to stop the nest being blown off in windy weather. The line next to the. So if we are going to put seagull proofing in, it has to be effective.
Okay, Andy.
Thanks, Chair. I'm a wee bit intrigued here about, Claire, maybe, can you put up the first site map? I'm assuming the right-of-way that's referred to for the riding of the marches is the path that runs from the point directly south. Is that path there? Right. So, is there a connector between the bottom right of the new site and whatever that building is to the left? Why would there be? Are we saying there's no works to take place in there because there could be a riding of the marches coming past when it's on? What? And I'm not want to be a stick in the mud here. I don't want to be a fly in the because I know a lot of people enjoy riding in the marches, but I have a lot of people do other things when riding in the marches is on, like take stuff to recycling places. And we honestly saying it can't work because there's some folk going by on horses out with the confines of their premise. If that was to be applied across the town, there'd be nothing open.
Just in response to your, the condition, this was something that was put on the original application for the zero waste park. It was something that it was also put onto the Scotgen application and reflects that, and that was the advice given at committee at that time, which is why that condition was imposed. So it's just reflecting what's been previously put on the previous zero waste parks and the Scotgen.
Chair, just to clarify, the condition actually simply restricts vehicular access across that right-of-way during that period of time.
Is there any vehicular access between the bottom right hand of that scheme, the new application site, and these other buildings on the right? Because they're different company. So basically what they're doing is, are we allowing them vehicular access at that bottom right hand corner of the site is the technical question, rather than them having to go all the way around to the roundabout and come in back into their Dargavel Stores in through that little mini industrial estate.
What kind of answer are you looking for, Andy?
Well, I don't think I'm going to get one. I'm getting a lot of abuse for the Black Raw here, but I did a precursor that I wasn't being a stick in the mud here. I'm just thinking about precedent and stuff like that, because should it be a planning? It should be in the drawings that there's vehicular access at the bottom right hand corner of the site, and maybe Claire can keep me right here, but I didn't seem to see them.
I don't think we're going to get this answer just yet. Ivor, have you got something to say?
Chair, knowing a wee bit about the ride marches, I take it that's just the ride out that would affect that, which happens on a Tuesday evening between 6 and 8 p.m. I don't think that's an onerous one on a path. I can understand if it was the full, from the start of the ride outs to the end of Keed Neighbours, but for 2 hours on one evening, if that's the condition, is it just referenced that 2 hours? I have less trouble with it than if it was over the full riding of the marches event.
Here, though, is that where in the drawings does it actually give a vehicular exit down that bottom corner? And it should be there if that's part of the plan application.
Councillor Ferguson.
Yeah, the vehicle access I'm referring to is this one here, just where my little thing is there. And it's that's the only restriction is on those times, and that's because that was something that was requested originally when the Scotgen plant was done, because that crossed the access to the Scotgen plant was through there, and there was the same impact.
Is that it is part of the application? Yeah, it is part of the application. That was the question. Yeah, and you're saying that's a gate there, so I'm happy with that. That's fine. Yeah.
Councillor Maitland.
Agree the recommendation, Chairman?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I can confirm in relation to item 6 that the recommendations are agreed, approved, subject to conditions.
Okay, we'll move on to item 7, which is just for noting. It's 6 Kirkland Court, Kirkcom, plan application for erection of extension to dwelling house, planning application number 16/P/1/0147. I'll hand over to Steve Rogers.
Thank you, Chair. Just simply for noting that the appeal into that decision of the committee to refuse the extension to that property was dismissed on appeal, so the original decision of the committee was supported.
Yeah, noted. Thank you. Well, thank you very much, everyone. I'll see those tomorrow that's on the training for being chairman. I wish I had it last week. To say. There's no any other business noted, and those who are not going to the training tomorrow, if you enjoy your recess, have a nice holiday, and I'll see you when you come back. Thank you.